All right, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. Um, First, I'd like to introduce my friend, Katie. Could you tell us a little bit about your background before we get started?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie. I live in Lafayette, California. I used to be part of a small group with Travis back a couple years ago. And so I'm joining today to kind of give some perspective on my time that I've had over the last 7 years participating and leading small groups. I came to faith in college back probably again 7 years at this point now, and just have been living in the Bay ever since. I went to school at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. And yeah, that's kind of, is that enough background there, Travis?
Works for me. Uh,
Awesome.
so, kicking off here, first question. What inspired you to become a small group leader?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. So when I first came to my faith, like I mentioned, it was in college, and it was something new for me. It wasn't a tradition I grew up in. And so the first thing that really drew me in was a small group. I actually came home in the first quarter of college to a small group that was happening in my dorm room. My roommate had invited them to gather there because they didn't have a place. And I kind of sat in the back, and it was late at night, so I wasn't going to leave. And they were so welcoming, and they're like, "Oh, please, like, we're so sorry we're here. We didn't think you were coming home at this point." And so I was introduced to Christianity through walking in and participating in a small group without even knowing it. And I will say that's how I came to faith. I had a place to really grow in community, and also just an open and inclusive space that I felt really safe bringing thoughts, doubts, different things too. So from the beginning, while I understand church is really important, I have had a real affinity towards and an understanding of how critical community is. And then one of the things I've seen as I've left college and been working for several years at this point is one of the biggest mental health challenges we have, I think, as a country is struggling with loneliness and disconnection from other people. And so again, where church can kind of be the lecture for you, if you really want to learn and grow and also find community where you're at, I think small groups are a really big piece of solving that puzzle. So to me, they're really important just from a faith aspect and also from a human aspect. Like we need places to connect in real ways and organically grow relationships. So that's kind of what inspired me to be involved in small groups and be a leader throughout the years in different ones as well.
So now, right now you're hosting a small group. How often do you meet?
Yeah, it's a little funny with coronavirus. We've had some social distance gatherings, we've had some virtual gatherings, but in this current small group that I help lead, we've been meeting for about the last year, and we try really hard to meet weekly. And I will say that can be a struggle for everyone. Everyone in my group, is working full time. So I've also had success in the past. We can meeting semi-weekly or like every other week, so twice a month instead. But currently, we are still trying to meet weekly, even if there's less of us there.
Now, what have you learned from leading a group?
Yeah, so many things. I think that there is so much growth in volunteering to lead and also just understanding that if you're helping lead a small group, you're really there to act as a facilitator, right? So I think the learning is kind of always changing and there's different things to get from that. But a couple of things that come to mind specifically is really setting expectations at the beginning. So if you're going to be someone that starts in particular a small group that doesn't already have like an established pattern and routine, one of the most beneficial things I've done in my last two groups is had a really honest conversation with the people that are coming together to be part of the small group at the beginning around what are our group guidelines? What are things that are important to us to study? Are there topics people are passionate about? Because you really need passion in a group to stay on a topical study. Do people just want to be reading from the Bible and discussing that week to week? And really tied into that, especially because so many people are busy and have different things going on, not just Wednesday night. You want to talk through and have a really honest conversation both with other people and with yourself about what level of commitment you want to bring and what you're trying to get out of this. And that doesn't always mean your level of commitment needs to be at a 10. sometimes you can just understand with where you're at with work or your family, your level of commitment is closer to a 5, but it's still really important to be meeting every week or every other week. And so maybe you pick something that doesn't require a pre-read of several chapters. Maybe you pick something that the podcast folks can listen to during the week as they're commuting, back, pre-COVID times. Or you pick something that doesn't require so much preparation on one person's part that you'll get together and find that no one's been able to do that. So I think that the best thing I've seen is having a really good and honest conversation about what commitment can people commit to, both in terms of time every week or every other week or once a month. And then also what's the commitment as far as work before that or what you expect a facilitator to bring to that. And again, that looks really different every group that I've been in, and I've experienced really good growth in all of those groups. So it doesn't always have to be a 10. And I think that's one of the things I've learned. Another thing I would say that's really important, at least to me in the groups that I've been a part of and helped lead, is a really open and inclusive space for people. So I think that one of the things that really inspires trust in a community and growth is being able to bring your whole self there and be honest, vulnerable, and open. And that really means you have to have a safe space where people can bring doubt and can also bring where they are honestly at on their faith journey, which is going to look different for people in different seasons. May look different with who's coming to your group, where they're at, if they're newer, if they're questioning, if there's somebody who hasn't even, made that decision yet or not. I think it's really important to understand people are going to be at different places with their faith in different seasons of their life, and to be a really open and safe space for that. That's where I've seen the deepest relationships and the most personal growth has been in communities that really support that and are, open to that. So I think that's maybe hopefully that's 2 points there that I think are, when I think back, like some good learnings from the last couple of years.
So what are some mistakes you've learned from early on?
Yeah, that's a good question too. Let's see, a couple of mistakes. So I think one of the things that is really easy to fall into for me, I'm an engineer, that's my background. And engineering is not, by its nature, super flexible. You want to make sure bridges are safe for people. So there's rigorous standards around that. So sometimes I find when I'm organizing my own life, I'm not as flexible as I could be. So one of the things I've learned early on is that while consistency is really good, rigidity is like the enemy of fun in a group, So like, it's really important to be able to be flexible. So maybe you have had those conversations, you've drawn up some guidelines, you've said we're going to meet this amount of time, we're going to go through Ruth, or we're going to go through Mere Christianity, and we're hoping to get through it in 10 weeks or whatever time frame you guys decide. But I found by really coming together and not being empathetic and understanding, and also just realizing that people need to be there to both have fun and to participate in growth for most of the home groups I've been in, that you can't be so rigid that if you come and you realize that week you're just not going to get done what you set out to get done, maybe you do play board games and sit around and just enjoy the community that you're participating in, right? Or maybe that looks like intentionally scheduling and reaching out to your group participants and saying, I'm feeling like we need an off week. We need a week where we go and have dinner, or where we're virtually having a happy hour or something, right? We need something a little bit different here. So I've really learned after making that mistake at the beginning, that flexibility is really important in how you're helping facilitate a group as its leader. You have to be able to roll with the punches. And I've mentioned several times, like, I think it's really important to have those guidelines up front about how are we going to operate as a group. But the flexibility part that comes in there is feel free to revisit those at any time when it's not working for the participants, right? The group is, like I said, there for fun and for growth and to build community. And so you really do want to bring that openness again, right? Bring that flexibility without losing your consistency. So it's definitely a balance there, but that's one of the mistakes I learned from early on. And one other that wasn't as much of a mistake that I had a hard time making, as I saw some folks make, that I learned from pretty early on too, was you don't have to be the teacher in all situations, even if you are holding a group, even in a mentorship capacity. So I've had times in my life where I was leading a group that was with another facilitator that was specifically catering to a set of students that was younger than us, right? Or and there sometimes can be that pressure to feel like you have to know the answers to the questions that people bring to a group, especially if you're calling yourself the leader, whether it's peers or it's folks that you consider yourself in a mentorship role from. And I found the best thing, again, to like grow trust, build a community, is really transparent honesty. And so I think the best thing you can say often is, I don't know. Maybe I'll look into, I could look into that for you, right? But I don't know, I think built more trust than when I knew the answers with the people that I was in a mentorship capacity with, right? Because that's saying like, no, I don't know everything either, but I'm not going to make up an answer for you. I'm going to be honest about that. And then maybe we just talk about what you think, or maybe we both go look into it separately and find another time to have a deeper, better conversation around this. So I would say that's the two things. Be flexible in your consistency and be prepared to say, I don't know, often, especially in a mentorship capacity.
So leading off that point, how can others be equipped to host local fellowship in their community?
Yeah, I think the most important thing with this is trusting that you actually already are equipped for this. So, and a couple of points to that, and I mentioned one already, you can really take the pressure off yourself by moving your mindset from feeling like you have to be a really structured leader to feeling like you have the privilege of being a facilitator of a group. So I really have tried to move my mindset from feeling like the word leader is someone who is making the big decisions and is pushing the group in a specific direction with an agenda. And instead, I think of myself as a facilitator for the group to be able to come together. Maybe you're someone who has the capacity to be able to host people at your home, you know, again, in non-coronavirus times. Or maybe you're just someone who can find a park, and that would work for right now too, and have a socially distanced gathering. But I think that really the trust there is just that you're more equipped and able than you think you are. And so just being willing to step up and say, I have a specific community I'm interested in or passionate about that doesn't have a group for it. Or I live in this specific area and I would love to not be driving an hour every Thursday, you know, to get to where I'm finding community. You probably aren't alone in that if that's a gap that's not being filled. So getting started is hard, but take the pressure off yourself and remember you're facilitating, which is a real kindness to other people that are going to be coming to your group. That part's hard. That's the organization part, but it doesn't mean you have to have all the answers, right? And then I think I touched on this too, but if you're looking to start something, do really think to yourself or like do some soul searching on what are you passionate about? Maybe it is a topical study. Maybe it's a book you've read or you've wanted to read that you would love to have people to engage in deeper conversations about. But it's important, I think, at the beginning, especially to bring something that you're passionate about, because your passion will inspire other people. If they see that you're interested in something, that's really critical to getting other people on board for that. So instead of just saying, I wish I had a group to be going to, do a little bit of thinking and think, okay, well, if I did, what would I want that to look like? And it doesn't have to be a specific topic, but it does need to be something you find some passion in. And it'll also turn that facilitation role from a chore into a joy. You know, if you're passionate about it, you'll want to keep doing it too. And I think the third point to feel equipped to start and continue to lead a small group is don't be discouraged at the beginning. It's always hard to get started. And I have to be honest, I've been in groups where it was hard to get started and then it was a hard end too. And we never had that many participants. And I've been in other groups where it was a hard start and then we really built momentum and had more people keep coming back. And the trick there is that has to happen organically. So if it's not happening for the group that's going organically, don't feel discouraged in that, you know, like give it some time, give it some space. And then if what you're doing isn't working, be flexible, revisit, ask other people for ideas there. But it's not, I've had to really look at when you're leading a group, it's not a failure to not have 10 people showing up every time. sometimes the best conversations I have are when we've had 3 people show up, and it's a much more intimate setting. So I kind of have turned from seeing less people as a failure, which it isn't, to just understanding that it may be a gift in a different way. And also you may grow from there. So I would say don't be discouraged if at the beginning it feels like it's hard to find your footing, or if you're not getting as much interest as you would want.
Well, Katie, thank you for covering all those main points. Do you have any additional thoughts that you'd like to share with us today?
Oh man, just that I am so excited about the app that you put out, Travis. As I mentioned, I moved here, after college, after being in a really tight knit, close community for, gosh, so many years. And then I was starting over again, and that was really hard. That's part of the time that I found your group, and then I've gone on from there after I moved to find another group. But at the beginning, it can be really lonely to move to a new area, especially if you don't have family there. And this is one of the ways, like I mentioned, that's really good for just people to be able to connect, to grow their faith, to find others to grow those organic relationships with, and also just get to come together every week to do something outside of a traditional church setting that will really, provide that additional place for growth. And so I'm just excited for your app. I'm excited to see how it grows as well. And I really appreciate you inviting me here today.
Absolutely, Katie. All right. Well, take care now.
Thanks. You too, Travis.